Hey guys, and welcome back to Chapter 4 of Naya Nuki, the Shoshone Girl Who Ran. Now remember, at the end you're going to have to be answering questions, so you need to pay attention to the video. If you don't know the answer, you can always go right back and rewatch the story. Let's get started with Chapter 4, Slavery. At the first light of the eastern sky, the prisoners were aroused. Enemy women came, and each one motioned for a prisoner to follow her. This way all the prisoners were separated. Naya Nuki and Sacagawea would see very little of each other from this time on. Naya Nuki was taken to a long house at the far end of the village. She was forced to work for an old woman from before dawn till after dark. The woman beat her for no reason at all. Naya Nuki worked hard, gathering wood, carrying water, digging roots, picking berries, grinding grain, scraping animal skins, and making mud to repair holes in the longhouses. Naya Nuki worked as hard as she could. She never caused the old woman any trouble. She did even more than was expected of her. After a while, the old woman stopped beating her. Naya Nuki was a model prisoner. Other women wanted her to work for them. They all thought Naya Nuki was the best of the prisoners. None dreamed that Naya Nuki was daily thinking and planning for her escape. While gathering wood on a high hill above the village, Naya Nuki carefully studied the winding of the great river. She looked for the best way to escape, the best way to run on her dash to freedom. Her heart pounded as she thought of that moment of escape. Naya Nuki waited for chances to steal some badly needed things for her escape and long journey home. She needed a sharp object to use as a knife and a buffalo skin for warmth. She would make extra pairs of moccasins in secret. She would hide a supply of dried meat and berries and some strips of hide. Naya Nuki had to be careful not to be discovered stealing or hiding food. If she were caught, she could suffer a slow, painful end to her life. Naya Nuki continued to work very hard for the old woman, who was the mother of one of the enemy chiefs. Naya Nuki was always the first one to get up in the morning. She would brush mounds of dirt from the hot coals of yesterday's fire. Dry wood was added and the fire fanned into flame. Next, Naya Nuki was off to fetch more wood and get water. Soon the old woman would rise and come out of the long house to warm herself by the fire. Naya Nuki would already be coming back with her arms full of wood or with skins filled with fresh water. Naya Nuki always acted as if she were happy with her new life. Her hard work and good behavior meant she was trusted more and watched less. One morning as the sun was high, Naya Nuki worked very hard scraping many hides, which would soon be stretched on racks to dry in the hot sun. Most of the hides were buffalo, and the best and most valuable. To steal one would be dangerous, but Naya Nuki wanted one so much. It was a necessary part of her escape plan. She must have one. She would steal it soon. Naya Nuki planned to rise a little earlier than usual. In the morning darkness, she would pass by the stack of hides quickly, grab one and carry it to the tree-covered hill, and hide it in a pile of brush. She would be back before she was missed. Her heart once again pounded as she thought of this dangerous plan. Naya Nuki scraped harder and faster now to hide the trembling caused by her excitement. The next morning a hide would be hers. That night, Naya Nuki rolled and tossed, finding it hard to get to sleep because of her excitement. She woke up often during the night. She was up earlier than planned. The sky was cloudy. There was no moonlight, and the wind would muffle any sound she might make. Quickly, Naya Nuki passed the pile of skins, taking one and hurrying up the familiar path in the darkness. She hid the skin and returned quickly to uncover the fire and go about her work as usual. Naya Nuki tried not to look at the old woman. She thought the old woman would need only to look at her eyes and see the guilt that must be in them. She did her best to act as though nothing unusual had happened, and the old woman paid little attention to Naya Nuki on this day. The wind was cold, and Naya Nuki was ordered to build the fire higher to warm the old woman better. She obeyed willingly to avoid looking at the woman in the eyes. With the buffalo hide safely hidden, Naya Nuki would turn her attention to getting a knife. Little did she know that this same day held a welcome surprise for her. By afternoon the sky had cleared, and the sun was shining brightly. Naya Nuki was on the trip for water at the creek that ran to the great river. She stopped at a favorite bathing spot where the water was deep and still. She plunged into the water to wash the dust off the dirt from her dry skin. When she came back to the surface, her toe stung with a sharp pain. She raised her foot above the water's surface as she floated on her back. Blood streamed from her toe. Whatever she had hit on the bottom was sharp, that it had cut through the skin. On the bank, Naya Nuki held her toe tightly to stop the flow of blood. Many minutes passed before she could stem the flow. When it did stop, Naya Nuki entered the water very carefully. With her eyes open, she slowly swam head first to the bottom. There on the bottom lay a shiny metal object. Carefully she picked it up and returned to the surface. In her hand she held a knife with a bone handle and a metal blade. She paid no attention to her toe, which was bleeding again. With her new-found treasure, she ran immediately to the nearby willow bushes and quickly buried the precious knife. She marked the spot with a large rock and rushed back to the creek. Once again she stopped the flow of blood from the cut on her toe. She carefully covered the signs of blood on the rocky bank, filled her water skins, and returned to her work. Who lost the knife? Surely the owner would return to look for it. Did I hide it well enough? Will it be found? Should I hide it in a better place? All these questions raced through Naya Nuki's mind, but she stayed away from that spot on the creek for several days. When she did return, she saw from a short distance that the rock marking the knife's hiding place was still right where she had put it. In one day, Naya Nuki had gotten a buffalo skin and a knife, the two things she needed most for her escape and survival. She wanted to escape before someone discovered her hidden treasures. Her mind was filled with plans, with fears, and with hope, all at the same time. Naya Nuki could hardly think straight, and sometimes did not hear the old woman give orders. Several times she scolded Naya Nuki for not paying attention. Naya Nuki had to force herself to listen, to remember, and to work. She must not let up. She must not let the old one know that she was planning something. Naya Nuki made some extra moccasins and hid them. She gathered up a secret supply of dried meat and berries. She was ready for the most important day of her life, the day of her escape. The time for escape must be perfect. A dark night with a rainstorm to cover her tracks. Without rain, enemy warriors could easily track her down. Naya Nuki would run when the time was right, not before. She must not fall, and she must not fail. From now on, her eyes searched the sky each afternoon for an approaching storm. She had memorized the habits of every member in the village. Naya Nuki knew every trail from the village and the location of every building and corral. She studied the stars which on clear nights would guide her when the great river could not be seen. Naya Nuki's every spare minute was filled with thinking, planning, and preparing for escape. 4 days after getting the knife and the buffalo skin, Naya Nuki had a rare meeting with Sacagawea. What Sacagawea told Naya Nuki frightened her greatly. "I have been sold to the Tabon," Sacagawea told Naya Nuki. "I will do his work, eat his food, and he will give me beads and wonderful things the white man has. He will take me to the big building and the big village of the white man called St. Louis. Naya Nuki, I am so excited but also sad. I hope I shall see you again. Maybe a Tabon will buy you too. Sacagawea, you are my good friend. I too hope we will meet again someday." Naya Nuki said no more. Sacagawea had to leave. She turned to leave, but stopped once to look back at Naya Nuki before going around a long house and out of sight, maybe forever. Naya Nuki was more afraid and nervous than ever. What if she were sold? What if she were taken even further away from her home? What about her knife and buffalo skin, hidden and ready to go? She must leave soon, but when would the rain come at night? Several storms came and went during the afternoon hours, but they did not last. Would her chance come in time? And that will do it for the end of chapter 4, titled Slavery. Now remember, in those questions, you do need to use complete sentences, and you're restating the question. So, if you're not sure how to do it, take the question, rewrite the question, and then put your answer. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. And remember, if you don't know the answer, go back and rewatch the video. We'll see you tomorrow.